All right, so welcome back. This is Module 4, where we'll discuss programming languages and development environment. So, here we will understand real world software development from theory to practical execution, and then build the foundation for building applications. Now, why does this matter? Programming needs a language with a good environment, right? Language is basically how we communicate with the computer and then condition it to or program it to do what we want it to do, right? So languages define logic, environments enable execution, and both are required for software development. Now, what's a programming language? It's structured communication with computers, helps you define logic and operations, and is used to build applications. We have example like JavaScript, Python, TypeScript, React, and all of that. All right. Some of okay. So this is how the languages are structured, right? So we have different languages for different environments. For instance, if you are building on the front end that which is the interface where you interact with the app, right? Example of language we use there is JavaScript. For backend, we can use Node.js and then Python. So for database, we use SQL, and each layer has different tools. We're going to see all of that later on. So let's just talk about JavaScript. All right, for JavaScript, it can run in a browser and server. All right. This is called web language, supports modern framework and used in real-time systems. Most 90, I would say 70% of applications these days are built with JavaScript, or at least its variations. All right. So Python is another popular language. It's mostly used for AI and machine language. Um, it also helps with automation and scripting, and then it's powerful for data analysis. Very simple and powerful language. All right, so we have TypeScript. Actually, it's a variation of JavaScript, right? It has structure, reduces bugs used in large apps. All right, so this is how you get to choose the right language. For the web, you use JavaScript. For AI, you use Python. For large systems, you use TypeScript, and then you get to do what you want to do. All right, so let's talk about the development environment. This means where you write and run your code. It includes the editor, the runtime, the terminal. I'm going to explain all of this as we go on before we get into the practical. So all of these are essential for development. So core tools. So you have your VS Code editor. You can actually use other simple text editors like Notepad, Notepad plus plus, but it's always advisable to use editors like VS Code because you can easily debug and run the app from your code there. All right. So for backend, you can use your Node.js runtime. That's to do your runtime environment. All right. Then you can always use your Chrome to test the app interface. All right. Now, for code editors, so you can write it, what code editors help you to do is to write your code efficiently. So you see different lines of code. Like I said, I prefer to use VS Code because you can see the different lines of code and you can reference each of those lines, as you are building. All right. Your code editor also helps you highlight syntax. Again, that also helps you to identify where there's a syntax error, or whatever you're trying to identify. It helps you detect errors. It's a very standard. I would just say to make this easier, use VS Code for your editor. For runtime, which is like the back end, all right, it helps you to execute the code. Then the Node.js runs the JS outside browser. Okay, it's required for backend. Always necessary for backend. Though the other backend languages and environment. I mean, the other ones. You can also write your backend with Python and Laravel, a few other applications there. All right. So now terminals are where you run commands that are relevant for your app, right? So you run script commands on terminals. Terminals could include your DOS, your that's command prompt, your PowerShell, you know, a few other ones. That's where you run your commands. It also helps you to install packages that are relevant for that app, and then controls the environment. Right, it's a very key development tool. All right, so your first program, you can just type that in any code editor that you've got. Just console.log with the single quote, hello world in brackets. And then don't forget the semicolon. What is going to print out is hello world, right? So this will be your first code. You can do that. Um, so, well, of course, we'll test that in our practical when we start the practical. All right. So project structure, the codes are going to be organized in files. Because of those codes, are going to be organized in files. How many of you remember when years ago when we used to install apps on desktops? You understand? You start seeing installing. All of that's just basically copying files, right? And adding them to the systems. So that's exactly what you're going to organize the files that you need for that app, and then know which is referencing what, right? So we have index.js, which is basically the logic, styles.css, which handles the design, the assets we have to do with the media that attached to the project. So when you want to run the project, you have to create a folder, open that folder in VS Code so that all the files, all the codes you are writing into will save there. I hope you get that. All right, so then you can write your code, run with Node, and then check the output. Now you don't have to worry your head too much about all of these things. We're just giving you basics, because when we get to AI is going to do all of these things that we just said, and you're going to have a better appreciation for it. So beginner mistakes: use too many tools, ignoring errors, copying blindly, and then of course inconsistency. Well, when you're talking about best practices, start simple, practice daily, build projects so you can get better. Then you will also have to try and understand the errors better. All right, so mini exercise: install these tools that we just mentioned, install your VS Code, install Node.js. That's Node.js, just type that and download it and install. You can use the latest version. I think right now the latest version of Node.js is version 24. Then which other one do you need to install? And I think that's that, right? So just get your VS Code, get your Node.js, and then get started. All right. So you can create an app.js, write a code, and then run program. But so the code is going to be based on what you are building. All right. So key takeaways: languages build systems. JS is foundational for your backend. Python powers AI. Environment is essential. All right. See you in our next module where we'll be discussing version control with Git and GitHub. Learn collaboration, manage code professionally. All right. See you in the next class.